What if we lived in a globular cluster? It begins with a sky you don't recognize. One evening, just as the sun dips below the horizon, you step outside. But instead of the usual soft veil of twilight followed by stars blinking quietly into view, the sky explodes with light. Not metaphorically, literally. The heavens are saturated with stars. Thousands of them, tens of thousands. No patches of dark between constellations. No constellations at all. Just a tapestry of light so dense it casts shadows on the ground. This isn't a strange dream. It's your new reality. In this scenario, Earth was never born in the peaceful suburbs of the Milky Way. Instead, it formed deep within a globular cluster, a massive, ancient ball of stars packed together like bees in a hive. These clusters orbit galaxies like satellites and are home to hundreds of thousands, even millions of stars, crushed into a space just a few hundred light-years wide. To put that in perspective, the closest star to our Sun today is 4.2 light-years away. In a globular cluster, your cosmic neighbors could be as close as 0.1 light-years. That's 40 times closer. You'd be able to see entire planetary systems with the naked eye. Imagine looking up and spotting the rings of another planet orbiting a distant sun, glowing like a cosmic halo across the sky. Sounds beautiful? Maybe, but it would change everything. There would be no true night. Ever. Circadian rhythms? Destroyed. Stargazing? Impossible. Even navigating by stars, one of the oldest human traditions, would be a nightmare. The night sky would look different from one side of the planet to the other, not because of time zones, but because light sources would saturate the sky in every direction. But here's the deeper twist. In this new reality, life itself is lucky to exist. Globular clusters are among the oldest environments in the universe, filled with low metal stars. Stars that likely don't host rocky planets like Earth. So if our planet formed here, it's either an anomaly or the result of a rare cosmic chain reaction. So what if we had always lived like this? How would it change our biology, our history, our society, even our sense of wonder? Next, we'll explore what globular clusters actually are, and how living in such a cosmic pressure cooker would shape the fundamentals of life on Earth. To understand what living in a globular cluster really means, we need to first understand what these cosmic hives are. Globular clusters are among the oldest known structures in the universe, spherical assemblies of stars bound tightly by gravity, formed over 10 billion years ago. Imagine a glowing sphere, 100 light-years wide, filled with hundreds of thousands or even millions of stars, all circling a galactic core like a swarm of fireflies locked in a dance. The stars in these clusters aren't like our Sun. They're older, cooler, and contain far fewer heavy elements, what astronomers call metals. That's important, because those metals are the building blocks of rocky planets, water, and life. In a typical globular cluster, the odds of finding a planet like Earth are slim to none. So in our scenario, if Earth exists here, it's either a once-in-a-billion accident or the result of some rare cosmic fluke, like a late-generation star forming after an unusually violent supernova enriched its neighborhood. But let's say it did happen. What would that mean for daily life on Earth? First, forget about the day-night cycle. The closest neighboring stars in a globular cluster might outshine our moon and be visible even during daylight. At night, thousands of those stars would blaze across the sky, many bright enough to cast shadows. There would be no true darkness, anywhere. Our circadian rhythm, which relies on cycles of light and dark, would be under constant assault. Sleep disorders, hormonal imbalances, and evolutionary changes in vision and brain chemistry would be inevitable. Then there's radiation. Globular clusters are chaotic places. Stars occasionally collide, and their explosive deaths, supernovae, would unleash waves of radiation that could affect Earth's atmosphere. Our planet's magnetic field and ozone layer might not be enough. Life would face a slow, invisible siege from space. And that's just the beginning. We'll explore how all these factors, light pollution, radiation, gravitational instability, would cascade into chain reactions, reshaping Earth's orbit, climate, and the very foundations of human society. It starts small, imperceptibly so. Astronomers notice a discrepancy in Earth's orbital period. The year has shortened by 3 minutes. Not a huge deal, right? But within weeks, new anomalies appear. Satellites begin to drift out of alignment. The moon's tidal patterns become erratic. The seasons seem to arrive early. At first, scientists argue over calculation errors, but one by one, the world's observatories agree. Earth's orbit has changed. That's no small thing. In our solar system's usual neighborhood, we enjoy gravitational stability. But in a globular cluster, with nearby stars tugging at us from all directions, even small perturbations can compound into catastrophic changes. A rogue red dwarf might wander close enough to exert a sliver of pull on the Sun-Earth system, just enough to alter our orbital shape, increasing eccentricity or shortening the year. Over decades, these slight nudges could spiral into a chain reaction. The consequences are brutal. Climate zones shift unpredictably. Tropical storms strike New York in February. Summers become scorching, and winters strangely mild. Monsoons arrive in the wrong hemisphere. Crops fail in regions that once fed billions. The delicate balance of Earth's biosphere begins to unravel. Meanwhile, humanity struggles to interpret the chaos. Conspiracy theories flood social media. Solar tampering, alien interference, secret government satellites, you name it. Religious revivals sweep across the globe, framing the cosmic upheaval as divine wrath or a return to prophetic destiny. Governments react in wildly different ways. Some impose martial law, fearing societal collapse. Others deny anything is happening. Meanwhile, scientists race to model gravitational drift from nearby stars, trying to predict which ones might pass dangerously close. Every star becomes a potential threat, not because it's malicious, but because it exists. Diplomatic tensions escalate. Nations accuse one another of tampering with planetary stability, despite the absurdity. The threat is cosmic, but the response is all too human. Panic, distrust, tribalism. We'll witness how these cosmic disruptions spill into the environment itself, melting ice caps, collapsing ecosystems, and a world where the basic rules of nature no longer apply. 6 months after Earth's orbital drift becomes undeniable, satellite footage reveals something terrifying. The Greenland ice sheet is fracturing. Not in decades, not in centuries, now. Arctic permafrost thaws like butter under a heat lamp. Entire coastlines shift under the weight of rising seas. Jakarta drowns. Miami becomes a memory. Venice becomes Atlantis. But it's not just warming. The climate has lost its rhythm. Monsoons hit the Amazon. Blizzards sweep across Egypt. Heat waves scorch Sweden. The Earth's weather systems, once stabilized by predictable solar input, now answer to a new master: gravitational chaos from the cluster's dense stellar population. The oceans turn hostile. Coral reefs, already stressed, die en masse as rising temperatures and acidification destroy marine ecosystems. Fisheries collapse. Jellyfish dominate where tuna once reigned. On land, ecosystems begin to fail like falling dominoes. Pollinators disappear. Forests go silent. Migratory species forget their ancient routes, confused by unfamiliar skies. And then come the comets. In a globular cluster, gravitational disturbances don't stop with Earth. The distant Oort cloud, a reservoir of icy bodies encircling our solar system, is continuously nudged by stellar passers-by. These nudges send comets tumbling inward like cosmic hailstones. Some miss, some don't. One slams into the Pacific, causing tsunamis that level Hawaii and San Francisco in a single day. Another fragments in the atmosphere, creating auroras visible in broad daylight and triggering global panic. The psychological toll begins to mount. The sky, once a source of inspiration, now represents instability and dread. Children are taught to fear the stars. People start covering their windows with blackout sheets, not just to sleep, but to forget what waits above. Yet, amidst the fear, adaptation begins. Some species evolve quickly. Night-adapted animals grow confused but start adjusting. Humans, however, find it harder. Sleep becomes a public health crisis. Work shifts blur. Mental illness spikes. The suicide rate doubles. Cities begin issuing night credits, artificial darkness subsidies to help people maintain biological sanity. We'll explore the breaking point, food shortages, technology failures, and the birth of a new kind of society struggling to survive in a world that never sleeps. By year 2, the illusion of control collapses. With unpredictable seasons and superstorms battering coastlines, agriculture enters a full-blown crisis. In North America's breadbasket, corn withers under erratic rainfall. Rice paddies flood in winter and dry up in summer. The global food supply, built on centuries of climate predictability, begins to implode. Grocery stores ration staples. Black markets emerge. People riot for wheat. But the breakdown isn't just environmental, it's neurological. Without darkness, humans become chronically sleep-deprived. Circadian rhythms dissolve. Melatonin production crashes. Hospitals report record levels of insomnia-induced psychosis. Suicide rates spike again. Sleep becomes currency. Companies sell blackout helmets, sedative aerosols, even luxury sleep spas deep underground for those who can afford respite. Technology doesn't save us, it stumbles too. Power grids, once finely tuned to energy cycles and consumer patterns, are overloaded. With solar panels now constantly fed light, energy becomes abundant, but unpredictable. Batteries overheat. Storage systems fail. Satellites, disrupted by constant gravitational noise, lose synchronization. Communications degrade. The internet flickers like an old fluorescent bulb. Nations respond unevenly. Some embrace authoritarian sleep marshal programs, curfews, light rationing, sedative mandates. Others plunge into chaos, their populations overwhelmed by both hunger and hallucination. In India, mass blackouts are scheduled nightly to simulate sleep. In Scandinavia, entire towns relocate to underground bunkers. In the U.S., states debate constitutional amendments over the right to darkness. And then, in the midst of the collapse, innovation appears, not from governments, but from desperate engineers, biohackers, survivalists. A biotech startup unveils a genetically engineered fungus that glows faintly but filters radiation and regulates circadian hormones. Refugees plant it in home shelters, calling it dream moss. Elsewhere, repurposed oil rigs become floating farms, shielding crops beneath artificial skies. Humanity has not yet fallen, but it is bending hard. The species that once conquered the dark is now fighting to bring it back. Next, we'll explore long-term adaptation, genetic engineering, underground civilizations, and how humanity may start preparing to leave Earth entirely. By year 5, Earth is no longer the world we knew. Entire nations have relocated underground, carving cities beneath mountains and deserts. Above ground, solar flare shelters and artificial shade canopies dot the land like metallic mushrooms. A new generation is born, one that has never seen a truly dark sky. As surface life becomes unbearable, innovation accelerates, not just to preserve life, but to reinvent it. Genetic engineering, once controversial, becomes a global priority. Scientists identify genes linked to deep-sea bioluminescent fish and nocturnal mammals, creatures adapted to extreme lighting. These traits are now being tested in human embryos, with the aim of regulating sleep, improving visual tolerance to constant brightness, and even boosting radiation resistance. The results? Mixed. Some children grow up with reflective irises, enhanced melatonin regulation, and faster wound healing. Others suffer from instability, neurological disorders, immune dysfunctions, or unknown long-term consequences. The ethics of cluster children, as they're called, become a major global debate. But desperation overrides caution. The question is no longer should we change, but how fast can we change enough to survive? Meanwhile, economic and political systems undergo seismic shifts. Fossil fuels are obsolete. Solar energy never sleeps. Old world powers weaken as food insecurity and migration overwhelm infrastructure. In their place, new alliances form, coalitions of underground arcologies, lunar colonies, and oceanic farming nations. The new currency isn't oil or gold, it's habitable darkness and radiation shielding. Even religion transforms. New faiths arise around the concept of balance, light and dark, chaos and order, adaptation and resistance. Some revere the stars, others fear them. One sect builds massive telescopic cathedrals, not to study the heavens, but to block them out. And then, quietly, space agencies begin to pivot, not just to explore, to evacuate. Mars, once considered too barren, now looks tranquil compared to Earth's chaotic skies. Probes are sent to Europa, Titan, and beyond, not just to search for life, but to find a home. Humanity faces a critical turning point, an unexpected cosmic event that forces us to choose, fight for Earth or abandon it. The warning signs were subtle. A slight shift in stellar brightness, faint gamma bursts recorded by deep space observatories. But within hours, it became clear. A nearby neutron star, one of the rarest and most volatile objects in the cluster, had experienced a starquake. Like an earthquake, but on a star's solid crust, it released a burst of high-energy radiation that tore across the cluster like a shotgun blast. Earth wasn't in the direct line of fire, but it didn't need to be. The edge of the gamma-ray burst brushed against our planet's magnetosphere, destabilizing satellites, disrupting electronics, and causing an immediate spike in radiation levels. Planes were grounded. Submarines lost comms. In some regions, the sky glowed faintly green in broad daylight, electromagnetic chaos dancing above. But the real blow wasn't the radiation. It was the reminder. We are living inside a stellar minefield, and one detonation can end us. Not in centuries, but in seconds. Panic returns with a vengeance. Global birth rates plummet. Doomsday cults gain momentum, offering salvation pods for those who surrender to the stars. Social media fractures into apocalyptic echo chambers, and yet, from the ashes of terror, something else begins to emerge. Clarity. This starquake becomes a unifying signal. For the first time, a planetary council forms, not just a UN 2.0, but a true global governing body with executive power. Its mission is singular, long-term survival. No more short election cycles, no more waiting for catastrophe to strike. Humanity must choose, stay and fortify, or leave and evolve. The dual-path plan is launched. On one hand, the Earth will be transformed further. Radiation domes, genetic adaptation, expanded underground infrastructure. On the other, full investment into interstellar propulsion, fusion drives, antimatter containment, cryosleep testing. Humanity, for the first time, becomes a spacefaring civilization, not by ambition, but by necessity. This is the moment history pivots. We will either become masters of our stellar cage or die within it. We'll explore the great rebuilding, how humanity begins to remake itself into something post-terrestrial, reconstructing not only civilization, but its very definition of home. The world didn't end, but it was undeniably reborn. 10 years after the starquake, Earth has become a different planet. Gone are the sprawling cities basking in natural light. In their place rise subterranean metropolises, engineered ecosystems lit by bioregulated LEDs, tuned precisely to human circadian rhythms. Above ground, gleaming solar towers soak up endless starlight, powering everything from underground farms to orbital launches. The Global Council for Continuity, now fully operational, has achieved what no prior generation could: planetary cooperation. Resources are shared, knowledge is open-sourced, and disaster preparedness drills are universal. Every child learns basic astrophysics by age 10, not to pass a test, but to survive. Ecological restoration becomes sacred. In vast sealed bioparks, scientists work to recreate lost ecosystems, synthetic oceans with cloned coral reefs, gene-revived forests, and reconstructed insect populations. Some are successful, others fail tragically, unable to cope with subtle shifts in atmospheric chemistry and light exposure. But progress is real, and hope is measurable. In parallel, humanity's space infrastructure expands rapidly. Lunar shipyards now build deep space arcs, massive generational starships designed to explore beyond the globular cluster. Mars, once a dusty research outpost, has become a hub of experimentation in terraforming and radiation shielding. Orbital habitats circle the planet like seeds of future colonies, but this isn't a utopia. The psychological toll of underground life remains high. Many struggle with isolation, nostalgia for the sky, or philosophical questions about identity. Are we still Earthlings if we never touch soil or feel rain? Art flourishes as a form of resistance and remembrance. Entire museums are dedicated to sunlight, its feel, its symbolism, its loss. In one school, children watch a documentary about pre-cluster Earth, beaches, clouds, constellations. A young girl raises her hand and asks, "What did stars look like when there weren't too many to count?" We'll reflect on legacy, how this cosmic transformation changes humanity's view of itself, the universe, and the fragile thread that ties us to home. Centuries pass. The cluster sky remains as dazzling as ever, an eternal jewel box of light. But to most humans, it no longer dazzles. It feels heavy, oppressive, like a reminder of everything lost and everything adapted. Humanity, now spread across orbital habitats, Martian cities, underground arcologies, and fledgling starships, looks back on the Earth that was not with pride, but with reverence. Museums preserve relics of a time when the stars were few and distant. Children study how life once evolved under a dark sky, a sky with mystery, not suffocation. What started as a survival response has become identity. Humans are no longer just inhabitants of a planet. They are a cluster species shaped by radiation, orbital flux, and the trauma of constant change. Every generation born after the starquake carries the legacy in their DNA. Literally, gene editing is now as common as education, ensuring resilience to radiation, metabolic adaptation to artificial day-night cycles, and heightened tolerance to sensory overload. But legacy isn't just biological, it's philosophical. New schools of thought emerge. One believes that the globular cluster was a test, either divine or cosmic in nature, to force humanity beyond its boundaries. Another argues that the cluster is a prison, and only when we escape its gravity will we be truly free. A third sees the cluster not as threat or test, but as mirror, a reflection of our own complexity, beauty, and fragility. Art shifts with this consciousness. Poets write about silence, not as absence, but as treasure. Music incorporates rhythms based on orbital shifts and light cycles. Architecture favors curvature, harmony, insulation, an echo of Earth's lost biosphere. And most of all, space becomes sacred. The universe isn't seen as empty anymore. It's a canvas painted with risk, potential, and memory. Every decision, every launch, every birth is weighed against the long arc of survival. We'll look ahead. What kind of future could await a species born from catastrophe, shaped by stars, and determined not just to survive, but to transcend? The stars are still close, but humanity is moving farther away. It begins quietly. A countdown, not to war, not to extinction, but to departure. After centuries of research, setbacks, and sacrifice, the first deep-range generational ship, the Aurora Spiral, prepares to leave the globular cluster entirely. Its destination isn't a nearby star. It's a calmer corner of the galaxy, on the edge of a spiral arm where the stars are few, darkness is real, and gravitational peace reigns. Millions watch the launch. Not from Earth, it's too unstable now, but from orbiting colonies and Martian observatories. The ship's engines ignite, silently sliding into interstellar night. No confetti, no cheers, just reverent silence, it marks the beginning of a new chapter, post-cluster humanity. But not everyone is leaving. For many, the cluster is home. They've adapted, endured, even thrived. They've built art, culture, meaning from its chaos. Earth, now mostly automated and shielded, is preserved as a living monument, a biospheric museum operated by descendants of those who refuse to flee. Some choose the underground. Others remain on orbital cities, staring out at the sky not with fear, but with understanding. What began as catastrophe became crucible. The cluster didn't destroy humanity. It refined it. New philosophies blossom. Some believe humans are destined to see dark corners of the universe with memory and myth. Others view the globular cluster as a rite of passage, a cosmic wilderness that forged a civilization worthy of deeper space. A few believe we will return, one day, when we've become something more. But no matter where they live, beneath Earth's crust, on Martian plains, or sailing between galaxies, humans carry the same question. Were we meant to survive? Or meant to learn? Because sometimes the universe doesn't ask permission. It simply changes the rules and waits to see who adapts. So what if we really did live in a globular cluster, bathed in endless starlight, shaped by chaos, and forced to evolve beyond anything we imagined? Would we crumble or transcend? What do you think? Could humanity find meaning in such a universe? Or would we lose ourselves in the light? Let us know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this journey through science and storytelling, subscribe for more.